About 2 hours after we go on sleep mode, I get pinged out of my nap. Settlement up ahead. Some giant old wind turbine and a guard tower.
The spotlights hit our van like corpsec, but there's something different about these guards. More authentic, if that makes sense. In my corporate days, we'd call this organic community defense infrastructure. Out here, they just call it survival.
Feels like every time I stop, someone wants to ask what I'm hauling, who I'm hauling it for, or if I've got creds to pay for parking. At least these folks seem more polite than most. Those turbines are something else, though. Old tech, but maintained. Someone's been keeping them spinning all these years. Good sign. Means we're dealing with people who know how to keep things working, not just scavenge and burn.
The vanes. A cluster of lights under the shadow of turbines, buzzing with the sound of wind and power. They're trying for peace here. But peace is fragile in the Barrens. You don't hold it without a gun in one hand and an eye on the horizon.
The auras here are settled, steady, like old furniture that's found its proper place. Even Rufus seems impressed, and he's usually such a snob about these frontier settlements.
Guards got decent trigger discipline, weapons well maintained. Snipers' positioning is textbook solid, though easily seen. But maybe that's the point. These aren't amateurs playing soldier. The way they've got those lights positioned, yeah, they've dealt with trouble before.
The guard Jacoby, he's got that particular blend of friendly and ready to shoot you that you really only develop after years of meeting strangers who might try to kill you. I appreciate that kind of professional courtesy.
Park at the edge of town, he says. Fine by me. Rather have a quick exit route anyway.
I decide to demonstrate what we used to call strategic information seeding back in corporate. See, you don't just ask for intel, not directly. You drop something, a detail, a name, casually like it's an afterthought, and let human nature do the work. Mention CrashZone King to any local security, and there it is. That slight tension in the shoulders, the shift in stance. Beautiful, classic threat response tells. Now we know there's real heat there, not just rumor. And better yet, he's about to redirect us to people in town, which means there's a whole network of local intel just waiting to be tapped. Sometimes the most valuable part of asking a question isn't the answer. It's watching how uncomfortable people get trying not to tell you everything they know.
Every time someone calls themselves king out here in the Barrens, it means they've either got a death wish or enough firepower to make that title stick. And if this guy who looks like he's seen everything twice, is warning us off, that's the kind of intel you don't ignore.
Fascinating branding choice for the King's Army, really. Heartsworn has a certain medieval romance to it, doesn't it? It tells me as much about what the king expects from them as it does about what we can expect from them. He's looking for loyalty beyond submission to overwhelming power. He wants blood oaths and death bonds. He's looking for an army of fanatics. I think we can definitely work with this much drama.
Can't say I'm sad this burg rolls up the streets at sundown. More sleep for old Chuck.
No sleep for me. Can't turn combat stims on and off. Just gotta wait it out. Not that I'd sleep anyway. Me and sleep have a complicated relationship. Anyway, equipment needs checking, cleaning, optimizing.
Dreams are funny things. This one's different. I'm young again, studying at the Circle. There's this box, all angles that shouldn't exist, opening into forever. Rufus says it's just memory playing tricks, but he wasn't there. He didn't see that box.
I dream of astral rejection. The lights, the music, the drinks, and apparently I've forgotten my clothes. Typical. Even in dreams, you can't escape embarrassing corporate party flashbacks.
Poor dear. Found Nahi passed out cold come morning. Combat stims always did have a nasty crash. Rufus volunteered to keep watch. He's taken quite a shine to her, which is unusual. He normally hates anyone more heavily armed than I am.
She's out cold. Poor kid's been running hot for too long. Seems safe enough to leave her here while we check things out in town. At least she's got the furball watching her back. Will you look at that? Those turbines, an old pre-crash even, but the maintenance work, that's art right there. You can hear it in the spin. These folks aren't just surviving, they're building. Kind of town that makes an old rigger a bit misty-eyed. Reminds me of better days back when people still built things to last. Though I gotta say, seeing actual gardens, real food growing, that's something else. Getting soft in my old age maybe, but there's something about seeing green things growing in the Barrens.
You can see where they've built their community year by year, each new building, each new family, adding their own little threads to the tapestry. Even the windmills have personalities, big, gentle giants, humming away in the background.
Real eggs, fresh vegetables, hot damn. Been forever since I had actual ingredients to work with instead of just powders and gels. Traded some drone parts I've been hanging on to for the eggs and tomatoes. Totally worth it. Just give me my camping stove and some actual ingredients essay, and I can still put together something that'll keep a soldier on her feet. Maybe even something that'll get Harriet to stop talking to her cat for 5 minutes and eat a proper meal.
Every town has its rhythm. You just have to listen for it. Here it's the hum of turbines and the chatter of the locals. Spin the right tail, and you'll find the right ears. I start by speaking with some guards on the street. Sure, I have to set the foundation with a lie, but my heart is in the right place. The more absurd the lie, the harder it works. That's what they never teach you in corporate negotiation seminars. Tell someone you're filming a nature documentary about local migratory birds and they get suspicious. Tell them you're shooting a historical erotic trid in a war zone. They just want to get you out of their face before you can explain more, and really, I don't blame them. Watch this guard's face. There it is. That perfect mix of confusion, disbelief, and desperate desire to end this conversation. Beautiful. He'd rather send us straight to their leader than risk hearing the plot synopsis. And now we're apparently meeting someone called the head engineer. In my experience, any title with head in it means someone who actually gets things done.
Okay, so we have supplies and we're supposed to meet with someone called Head Engineer Shanna. That's a solid morning's work. Time to head back to the van for breakfast.
Light hurts. Everything hurts. Tactical assessment. I'm in the van. Rufus is watching me? Nice to know someone maintained proper watch protocols while I was out. Even if it was a cat. Smell of soy calf and eggs. Real eggs. Chuck's definitely in mother hen mode. Not that I'm complaining. Right now, I'd eat boot leather if it came with caffeine.
Poor dear. Rufus has been absolutely insistent about keeping watch over her. I have to say, her aura's fascinating right now. All sharp edges, slowly remembering how to be curves. Oh. Is that breakfast? The smell of real eggs. Now that's proper magic right there.
Funny thing about feeding people, it does more than just fill bellies. Gets them ready for whatever's coming. Looking at him now. Now he alert and checking her gear. Sal straightening himself up. Harriet actually focused on the physical plane for once. We almost look like professionals. Well, professional something anyway. Maybe not the kind you'd want to bring home to meet your mother, but the kind you'd want watching your back in a tight spot.
Information's like currency. Everyone has some. Most people don't know its true value, and the real art is in the exchange rate. This Shauna, the head engineer, interesting title choice, by the way. She'll have what we need. Not just about the CrashZone King, but about the whole ecosystem here. These windmills didn't just appear, and this community didn't just happen. Someone built this, maintained it, protected it, and they did it right in the middle of gang territory without getting wiped out. That takes more than engineering skills. That takes diplomacy. That takes politics. The kind of street-level deal-making that corporate negotiation trainers can only dream about. Which means Shauna's not just going to have information about the crash zone. She's going to have the context, the real story behind the story. The trick will be getting her to see us as an opportunity, not a threat.
Town Hall's got subtle fortifications, reinforced walls, clear fields of fire, multiple exit routes. These people know what they're doing. Fortified corridors, organized guards. These people are ready for a fight. Not surprising, considering the CrashZone King is in their backyard. But it's not just brute force here. It's brains, too. I like that.
Shanna's not what I expected. Got that look of someone who's rebuilt more than just machines. Way she carries herself, way she talks about the veins. She's built more than just a power station here. She's built hope, running on recycled parts and stubborn determination. And the head of the militia, Walter, guy's got that look. Same look I used to see in the best security chiefs in the corporate sector. Difference is, he's not protecting profit margins, and the bottom line, he's protecting something real. Something that matters.
Oh, yes, I see it now. Just like the windmills. They're all part of the same pattern, aren't they? The windmills, the people, the power they share. Everything working together to push back the darkness. Just a little bit. Just enough to matter.
This setup in the veins. It's everything the king isn't. Everything he's trying to destroy. They build, he breaks. They share power, he hoards it. Classic destabilization target profile. Malevolous Vileheart. What's with gangers and the dumb names? Probably thinks it makes him sound powerful. Just makes him predictable. His heart sworn. That's telling too. Someone like that, with that kind of name, that kind of army. His ego's not just a weakness. It's a tactical vulnerability. The king's probably got blind spots big enough to sneak 4 runners and a cat through. Men who rule by force always do. That blind spot's probably right here somewhere. We just have to be sharp enough to spot it.
The interesting part? The king's actually creating his own opposition. Every community he threatens, every gang he forces into submission, he's not building loyalty, he's cultivating resentment. That's the thing about ruling through fear. Great short-term returns, terrible long-term investment strategy. And I'm willing to bet his army isn't nearly as devoted as he thinks they are. You can rule by fear, or you can rule for long. You can't do both. The real question is, how many of his inner circle understand that? Because in my experience, there's always someone close to the throne who can do the math.
Looks like Shauna is treating the king like a pest more than a threat. That could be a mistake. Not my problem, though. Their tactical assessments and intel on him are full of holes and gossip and opinions. Not very useful. On the upside, she gave us permission to speak with the militia and anyone else at the canteen. Worth a shot.
Now this is where you get the real intel. Not in fancy meeting rooms, but in places that smell like cheap beer and yesterday's regret.
Every person here is a potential source of intelligence. That kid bartender's seen every face worth knowing, heard every story worth telling. The guards have fought every threat worth fighting. The real art is in looking like you belong just enough to be trusted, but not so much that you're a threat. A slightly rumpled suit, a tired smile, just the right level of casual interest. Let them think they're just passing time with another traveler and watch how the stories start flowing.
This bartender Tembo, kid's got a mouth on him. Though he's not wrong about the crash zone being suicide. Been there before. Place has a way of eating people. Literally.
My goodness, the astral space in here is absolutely saturated with everything. Rufus says it reminds him of an old cat's meeting place, full of territorial markings and shared histories. Oh, there's a delightful little spirit hanging about near the beer taps, probably attracted to all the stories being told, or maybe just the beer. Spirits can be funny about fermentation. Everyone's auras get so much more honest after a few drinks. All those carefully maintained shields starting to blur at the edges, like watching ice cream melt, but with more swearing. And when they talk about this king person, my word, the colors they turn. All sorts of angry reds and anxious yellows.
Doesn't seem to be any guards on break here, but there are a few sketchier types, gangers and dealers. Guess we can shake that up and see what comes loose.
Canteen's got its share of hard cases, but selecting an asset, that's about reading desperation levels. So you want someone who needs to talk, not just someone willing to talk. And our friend Powder Keg over there, classic tells. Back in corporate, we had expense accounts for information acquisition resources. Out here, we just call it buying drinks. The trick isn't just offering to pay, it's making them feel like they're doing you a favor by accepting. Nothing loosens a grudge holder's tongue like someone offering to pay to hear exactly how much they hate someone.
Red Hot Nukes, they ain't exactly known for their peaceful conflict resolution, but this Powder Keg, he's got that look. That look when Sal mentioned the king? That's personal. Not just gang rivalry personal. That's you fragged with my family personal.
Buy a dwarf a drink and suddenly you've got a complete intelligence briefing on local gang politics. The Rusted Stilettos, Crimson Crush, the Ashen, all playing nice with our friend, the king. Interesting.
Typical ganger intel. All emotion, no precision. Sure, he's got stories about the king, about the Heartsworn, but ask him anything specific. Numbers, patrol patterns, defensive layouts. It all gets real vague, real quick.
Time to change tactics. Less who wants revenge and more who wants to make a deal. Because if there's one thing I learned in corporate, the best intel usually doesn't come from the people fighting the war, but from the people profiting from it. Guy in the trench coat chatting with our sardonic bartender. Everything about him screams survivor. Not the flashy kind, no chrome, no gang colors, no obvious weapons. Just that particular way of carrying himself. The kind of casual alertness that says, I've seen all the angles and picked the ones that keep me breathing. Look at how he works the room without seeming to. Guy like that, he's interested in opportunity. And in the Barrens, that means he knows every player, every angle, every safe route and danger zone. Not because he's tough, but because being ignorant would be bad for business and worse for life expectancy. The best part, guy like that doesn't just know the territory. He knows how to navigate it, how to survive within its rules, how to thrive. Gangers might know where the threats are, but people like him, they know where the gaps between those threats are, the blind spots.
Slate's shady. But that's not a deal breaker. If he knows the king's territory and the players, he could be worth the risk.
Guy's talking a mile. And one thing I've learned about that kind of John, it's that saying a lot of words don't make a book. Know what I mean? I'm not buying any of what he's selling, especially not the tall tales.
Slate talks the usual dealer dreck, but this story, this is fascinating. Not just the story itself, though a Heartsworn convoy surviving a bridge collapse is certainly noteworthy. But the way he's telling it. Notice what he's not saying. No dramatic embellishments, no you should have seen it moments. Just careful, precise details about some probably not so accidental structural failure that somehow didn't kill anyone.
Sounds like more bull to me. You drop a bridge on a convoy, that convoy ain't coming out the other side. Simple. And I find it hard to believe this king has anything like magic or bleeding edge tech up his sleeve that could change that.
Keylock Kelso spotted in the convoy and a bunch of plunder. That's not just a detail, that's a signature. Tells you something's happening, but more importantly, tells you something's changed. The kind of detail that only matters if you know what you're looking for. Bridge collapses are physics. Basic cause and effect. When they don't work the way they should, well, that usually means someone's changed the rules. Our friend here, he understands this. He's not just sharing information, he's testing the market, seeing how we react to the impossible. Like a good trader, he's not just selling information, he's gauging its value by our response.
Story about the overpass collapse. That's the kind of intel you don't just stumble across. And he's seen Kelso alive. Plus, now we know the king is a troll and a local to the zone. That could be useful in any number of ways. We're walking out of here with way more actionable intel than when we began this talk. If we can have the same access he's claiming he has to the king, we have a pretty good chance of tracking down that box.
I'm not entirely sure what's happening anymore, but everyone seems very excited about it. Though I do wish they'd explain why we're giving money to the man in the suspicious coat. It sounds like it's for some movie we're making now. What happened to the box?
And just like that, we've got ourselves a guide into madness. You know, in corporate negotiations, we had a saying, if the deal seems too good to be true, you've either missed something important or you're about to make a lot of money. Here's hoping it's the latter.
300 new yen for a guide who knows the terrain and claims to have direct access to the king? Too good to be true. But sometimes, too good to be true is exactly what you need. Besides, if he's lying, well, that's what the backup plan is for. Always have a backup plan. Yes, my backup plan is a gun.
So we're paying this scum-dealing skis Slate to guide us into the part of the Barrens that people living in the Barrens are actually scared of, to meet a troll who's got every stabber and slicer out there believing that he's a king, and somehow convince him we're filming a historical, erotic Crid, and do it for long enough to evade his army of psychos and find and steal back a tiny Japanese box. Did I get that right? Well, you know what old Chuck says when something sounds too good to be true. At least it don't sound boring, chummer.